In this video, we're going to take our billet that has 207 layers and we're going to four-way it 3 times, giving us over 13,000 layers. In the last video, we set up our initial Damascus billet, multiplied the layers times 9, and re-squared the pattern once. It doesn't look like a mosaic yet, it just looks like a quarter of a mosaic so far, and we're gonna pick up right from there. I've got our billet all cleaned up and cut into 4 equal length pieces. This time we're gonna four-way the billet. So that means instead of stacking the pieces up on top of each other like this, we're actually going to stack 2 on top of each other and then stack those 2 next to each other to make a 4-way stack. And since we want them to all mirror each other, we're gonna do it like this. Grab the ends, fold them around, and then I can just take this and bring it to the inside towards me. And now all the pieces mirror each other, and this is what a 4-way stack is. Right now, since the pieces mirror each other, the pattern is going across on like a 45-degree angle. So we've got that one, this one, and then without even looking at it, I know that one's going like this, and this one's going like that. So when we put all 4 of these together, we're gonna end up with a mosaic explosion-y picture on the end of the bar. There is one thing that I wanna do different though, and that is to add in some extra material right here. So in between each one of these bars, I'm gonna be adding in 2 90,000th strips of 1084. So I'm gonna put 2 in between all these different pieces of Damascus, and that'll add a bright black, or a dark black stripe rather, in between all these 4 pieces. You may think I use the forge to heat up all the Damascus pieces and fuse them all together, but it's a little known fact that I actually use CA glue to forge weld my billets together. Actually, the CA glue is very handy to help hold all these little pieces together and get everything set up the way I want it to before I MIG weld the billet together. Super glue all over my desk. Did I flip these around? I hope that's the way that looks right though, the number across from each other like that. Yeah. I think that's right. Got a lot of seams coming together there. I hope all this welds up fine. It will. I use my secret weapon to hold all these loose pieces together, some Starbond CA glue. Now we can start welding everything up. And once I get the ends welded up, probably go ahead and weld up the edges, and then we need to grind off this extra material. We've got like a 1/4 inch of extra material sticking out there and an 1/8 inch there. Get everything all sealed up with the TIG welder and the MIG welder, get a handle on this, and then get it in the forge, heat it up nice and piping hot, and get this 4-way set together. We've actually got 4 pieces to forge weld, plus the 8 pieces in the middle. So there's actually a lot of different little pieces to get all stuck together. I head over to the welding station and begin MIG welding the ends of the, wait, it looks like it's time for Dad to do a little jig. Got the ends welded up, it's time to get a handle on the situation. It's shiny when you wire wheel it. 1084 pieces that I put between the Damascus billet pieces were a little bit wider than they needed to be, so I'm grinding that excess material off now that everything's welded up. Got the billet all welded up and ground the excess material off the edges. Let's get it in the forge, heat it up to really, really hot, 2300 degrees, and then use the squaring dies to forge weld it from every direction at the same time. Then we're gonna draw this out into about a 1 1/4 inch square bar, just like it was on the previous forge welding session. What's nice about these squaring dies is they push the billet from all 4 sides at the same time, helping us set the 4-way weld. You don't have to have these, but it makes it nice. Yeah, the weld should be set. I'm gonna put this back in the forge, and then we'll just use the regular drawing dies and continue forging this down to 1 5/8 square. Then we're gonna re-square it, then forge that down to about 1 1/4 inch square. After getting the billet forge welded together using the squaring dies, I then go back to the regular drawing dies and begin drawing the billet out. Once I get the billet down to about 1 5/8 square, it's time to re-square the billet once again. Just like we did in the previous video, re-squaring will change the orientation of the pattern on the end of the bar. In this case, it's going to add in some really cool distortion to the end of the bar and make the mosaic be a little bit more of a square shape instead of a diamond shape. After re-squaring and getting the billet drawn out to length, I let it cool down and then grind the mill scale off the outside of the billet. My grinding station's outside to keep dust down in the shop, and it's a really rare thing, but we got about 5 inches of snow here in Missouri, so it's actually quite beautiful out.
Wow. That is incredibly similar to what I drew. Like, almost exactly what I drew. That is really cool. I just had my first little sneak peek at how our mosaic's looking so far, and I could not be more pleased with how it's looking. I think it's incredible, and it looks very, very similar to what I drew originally too, so we're on the right track. I'm gonna cut this thing up into 4 equal length pieces, and we're gonna 4-way it again. I haven't decided if we're gonna re-square it again or not. I'm gonna do that after I cut these up and etch the ends and see how they all look together, and then decide whether or not I want to re-square it again or not. Wow, that's almost perfect. I can just do 5, 10, 15, 20 again.
I sure like it when I can divide the billet up by 5s. I don't have to do any complex math or get out the calculator.
Yeah, when I look at all the 4 patterns etched together, I think I actually want to re-square it. It'll be a little bit more in line with what I drew here, but this last drawing is off a little bit. Something's not quite right with it. Up until that point though, I think I got everything right, but then there's something a little bit weird here, but I think I want to re-square it. It should make these little flowery petals skinnier and longer and more flowery. All right, we're re-squaring it again.
I probably sat there for 10 or 15 minutes just looking at my pattern, looking at my sketch, and trying to visualize what the pattern would look like if I left it like it is now and 4-wayed the billet, or if I re-squared the billet after getting the pattern forge welded together. Just like the previous forge welding session, I heat the billet up piping hot and then use my squaring dies to forge weld the billet together and then begin drawing the billet out using my regular drawing dies.
The welds are set on the billet, and now I'm gonna start re-squaring the billet. It's a little bit larger than it normally would be when I re-square it. That's because I want this re-square to be a little bit more extreme than normal. If you'll notice, I'm also using my big dies for this. Which corners was I just pushing on? Shoot. I think it was like that, I hope. Just lost track of which direction it was going in because don't normally do it this way. This is where the press could use a little more power, huh? Now that the billet's re-squared, I'm just gonna draw it out. I'm planning on drawing it out until it's just over 1 3/8 square. Now that's gonna be not the final size we need for the tile billet, but I'm not certain if I want to 4-way it again or not. So for now, I'm just gonna draw it out to 1 3/8 by 1 3/8, let it cool down, cut the end off of it, see how the pattern looks, and make my decision on whether I want to continue forging that out into the blade and do the tile welding and everything, or to 4-way it again and basically 4 times the amount of layers in the billet. I really won't be able to tell until after I've let it cool down and take a look at the pattern to really see how it's all coming together. I think one more heat to straighten the billet out a little bit, and then I'm gonna set it aside, let it cool, and then we'll cut the end off and see how this pattern looks. I cannot wait. I'm super excited to see how this looks. It was already looking really good before this stage, and it should be pretty cool now. And when I say pretty cool, I mean really pretty cool. All right, it's nice and straight. Let it cool down. I cut into the end of the billet and did a little etch real quick to see how the pattern looks. I think it looks amazing. I'm very happy with it. I'm gonna go out on a limb and take a little bit of a risk though. I think we're gonna go ahead and 4-way it one more time. I think it's gonna be amazing. It might be a little bit on the fine side, but there's enough of that really bold stuff, that extra black we added in earlier, there's enough of that left so it'll still be eye-catching from a distance. But then when you look at it up close, it'll have this really cool fine stuff going on, so I think it'll be okay.
If you haven't heard yet, our newest course is now available, the Mosaic Damascus Recurve. We'll start with the initial billet setup and go through every stage of making the mosaic pattern. I'll teach you in a way that'll make you feel like you're right there in my shop with me, one-on-one, going through every stage of the build. I'll show you how to take that beautiful pattern and turn it into a fully functional knife by giving it a proper heat treatment. I'll show you how to get a perfect guard fit and make your handle also fit like a glove onto your tang. I'm going to show you how to etch your mosaic Damascus to reveal the pattern. Without the proper etching and darkening process, you're really not taking full advantage of your mosaic pattern. To wrap everything up, we'll sharpen the blade, epoxy the handle on, and add a little domed silver pin into the handle so we have a mechanical hold. This course is over 16 hours of me taking you step by step from the very beginning to the very end of building this mosaic Damascus recurve. I'm confident that you'll enjoy the course and pick up tons of tips and tricks along the way to help you in your knife making journey. And if you don't, there's no pressure because we have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, then check out the link in the description. It's on sale now for 40% off. And now back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. Once again,
You got it.
I'm outside grinding the heavy scale off of the billet so we can do our final 4-way. I need to get this thing cleaned up and then cut it up into 4 equal length pieces. You know the drill. Get them CA glued together, get them welded together, get them back in the forge so we can do our final forge welding session on this billet. Well, at least the final one before tile welding, so I guess the second to final one.
I got the billet cut up into 4 pieces, cleaned them all up, stacked it up, welded it back together, and I've been heating it up in the forge. I need to heat it up a little bit more and then we'll be able to do the final 4-way on this billet. That's gonna take the pattern and put 4 times as many layers in it. I think it's gonna look awesome. Let's get this heated up and forge welded together. Got it nice and hot, and go ahead and set the welds, forge weld this all together so it's not 4 individual pieces, but instead it's 1 solid block. I sealed the sides up with the TIG welder like I've been doing, so I don't need to worry about grinding any of that out since I didn't use any filler. Okay, I'm gonna pop this back in the forge and then use my drawing dies to draw this out from here. To start with, I'm going to draw it down to like a 1 3/8 inch square bar. Then we actually need to turn it into a rectangle for the tile welding that we're going to do later on. got the bar down to 1 3/8 inch square. What I'm doing now is just running it through my squaring dies a little bit. I'm being very gentle though. I'm not trying to make the bar any smaller at this point. I'm just trying to square it up. This will get the bar nice and square. When I'm just using my regular drawing dies, the bar has a tendency of kind of turning into a little bit of a diamond shape or getting some weird shaping. This is just to clean it up, make it a nice square before we turn it into a rectangle. It's time to turn this into a rectangle. I've got some stops in there, about a 1/16 over 3/4. I'll probably take those out though and forge this down to about 3/4 thick. I was just too scared to do that right off the bat. That's why I have those extra 1/16 inch shims in there. This is kind of a dimension I don't work in very often because this dagger isn't very wide. This mosaic bar also doesn't need to be very wide. And the formula I normally use is about half the thickness on the bar as it is wide. So technically, going by that formula, it could be even thinner than 3/4. But I'm just not sure. Sometimes I go a little over half the thickness compared to the width. That's probably what I'm going to do in this case. I mean, look how long this mosaic billet is. Last time I had a billet this long, like, this is probably the longest mosaic billet I've ever had. Even the sword ones weren't this long, I don't think. So that's what's kind of scaring me here. I'm gonna stick it in vermiculite so it can cool down slowly. That'll make it so I'll be able to bandsaw the blade later on, or the pieces. I'll be able to bandsaw all the pieces easier.
After letting the billet cool down in the vermiculite, I cut the end off the billet, cleaned it up a little bit, and did a quick etch so we can see how the mosaic pattern's looking. I love the pattern so far. In the next video, we're gonna be cutting this billet up and doing a tile weld. That's going to transform the pattern so it's not just on the end of the bar, but actually all across the sides of what will become our dagger blade. I will see you in the next video. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye! The YouTube algorithm thinks you'll like this video, so let's see if it's right. I think you'll like this video, so let's see if I'm right.